I mean, I guess the good news is every one of these losses, especially the regulation ones, is that much closer to a better draft pick. So at least there's that. What's cracking, everybody, and welcome back to Kraken R&R, where for the second time in a row, the Seattle Kraken lose in pretty frustrating fashion. This time it's a little bit different, and it's 2-1 to the Calgary Flames in Gio's return to his old home. It certainly was a shame that in his return to Calgary, they could only be at half capacity in the Saddle Dome because of all the COVID restrictions, obviously, but still, that half capacity crowd did give him a very warm welcome, a standing ovation, definitely some tears in the crowd, and some tears being held back by Gio himself as he gave a number of waves to the crowd after a decently long video commemorating his time, the 15 years that he spent there. And it definitely has to be said that that return to Calgary in this first game back in his old home seemed like it was a pretty good motivator for him, as he had one of the better games he's had all season, all over the place on the ice, playing well defensively and taking about every shot opportunity he could possibly get. Only 3 of them end up getting on net as far as the stats are concerned, but he made a lot more attempts than that. And I'm sure that that was also helped out by the fact that early on in the game, during especially his first shift of the game, right as it got going, every time he touched the puck, the crowd let out a pretty audible cheer, which even at half capacity, you could definitely make out on the TV broadcast. And honestly, it felt like even towards the end of the game when the Kraken were trying to tie things up late, if he had been able to score, that crowd probably would have erupted for him, even if it did mean that the game would go to overtime instead of their team winning in regulation. They were definitely there for Gio first, and Flames, well, maybe not Flames second, but they definitely wanted to see Gio have a good game. Unfortunately for any Flames fans that were there to see Gio, they didn't get to see the Gio goal, even a late tying one, and just had to settle for a Flames win, which for the Flames I think is now their 9th in a row, as they are, no pun intended, absolutely on fire at this point in the season. Meanwhile, the Kraken, yeah, not so much. It is a pretty even start to the game, at least for the first 3 minutes, when eventually a Lindholm shot goes wide of the net, takes a weird bounce. I think it must have gone off the side of the net or something, but nobody seems to know where it went, at least as far as Kraken players are concerned, except for Grubauer, who's pointing to the corner trying to direct traffic. But by the time Dunn or McCann know where it is, Lindholm is back on the puck in the corner, and he fires off a pass into the middle of the ice to a wide open Matthew Tkachuk, who's gotten completely forgotten about by the Kraken, and his shot is able to beat Grubauer. It's the first shot of the game, and it's in the back of the net to give the Flames the early 1-0 lead. It's an unfortunate, but not terribly surprising start to the game for the Kraken. For Grubauer, he's had a bit of a rough go in the last few games ever since getting his new Kraken-colored pads and switching back to those off of his Avalanche ones that he'd been using while he was on a bit of a hot streak. For the Kraken, it's more first-period troubles, where they've been one of the worst teams in the league in the first period over the course of this season so far. Meanwhile, for the Flames, they've been one of, if not the best team in the league in the first period, so yeah, I guess this is kind of what you could have expected coming in, especially when you let a player like Tkachuk get wide open in the slot. And the Flames are able to build off of it as they clearly take momentum of the game after this first goal, pressing for more right away over these next few minutes and spending a lot of time in the Kraken offensive zone. Fortunately, from pretty much that first shot on, Grubauer was locked in for the rest of the game, so the Flames aren't able to get the early 2-0 lead. Finally, the Kraken are able to get out of there into the ice, and eventually it's Mason Appleton who carries it out of the Kraken end and across the center line, looking for a pass. He can't find one, and with the blue line being taken away, he makes the correct decision and just dumps it into the Calgary end along the boards behind the net. The Flames do get to it first, trying to push it back up along the boards, but with Appleton coming down following his dump in, Hanifin goes to cut it off behind the Calgary net, and instead of pushing it back up along the boards the other way, or trying to get it past Appleton behind him, he makes a pretty questionable decision by just throwing it out into the middle of the offensive zone into the slot where there aren't any Calgary players, and in fact, the only player there to get that beautiful centering pass is none other than ya boy Kelly Yarncroke, who gets it wide open and buries the shot past Markstrom to tie up the game at 1. And so now, with over half of the first period done, there's already been 2 beautiful passes from behind the net by Calgary Flames players, out into the slot to wide open guys that take shots, and both are able to bury it to get the goal. However, the game is tied because the second one comes in favor of the Kraken, and although Järnkrok gets the unassisted goal, the unassisted part of that is a little misleading because Hanifin does have a assisting pass. He just doesn't get credit for it because it's against his own team. From there, the next few minutes are rather uneventful, leading into the last couple minutes of the first period, where it is once again the Flames that get the next great scoring chance, and it comes off of a sloppy play in the neutral zone by the Kraken, and a turnover that leads to a very good Coleman shot, and a good chance of scoring, but an even better save by Grubauer, who not only makes the good save, but takes care of a dangerous rebound that goes out in front of the net. And just seconds later, Hanifin is looking to make up for the goal that he handed to the Kraken by getting another pass off, this time to one of his own players. It's Mangiapane who has the grade A scoring chance, an even better look than the one that Coleman got, and a lot of net to shoot at, but Grubauer is able to dive back in front of the net and make a spectacular toe save to keep this one out as well, with back-to-back beautiful saves to end the first period, as we would get to the first intermission with the game still tied at 1. And the second period starts as the first one ended, with a couple more big Grubauer saves right out of the gate, one of which being on a Johnny Gaudreau partial breakaway who, although he has had a bit of an up and down career so far with Calgary, he is having a fantastic season for them this year in a contract year. We go back to the back and forth play for a couple minutes, leading up to a Kraken 3-on-1 breakaway. Wember gets a nice pass across to Eberle, who shoots and he scores. No! Oh my goodness! Markstrom, not to be denied by Grubauer for save of the game, makes an absolutely spectacular highlight reel double pad stack save, throwing both of his legs back across as he dives to make the save on Eberle's shot, kicking his right leg up in the air and saving it as Eberle tried to get it over both of his legs, but somehow Markstrom gets the pad to it and makes that pad save well above the ice. Meanwhile, for Eberle, all he can do is roll his eyes and look at the ceiling in exasperation. Honestly, at this point in the season, you could make a highlight reel of best saves across the NHL so far to this point, out of just shots taken by Jordan Eberle, and it would be believable that those were the best saves the league had to offer. And right back the other way, Mangiapane gets a wide open shot at the Kraken net, but Grubauer is able to answer with a good blocker save. Certainly not the best save that he's made to this point in the game already, and certainly nowhere near as good as the one Markstrom just made at the other end, but it gets the job done. Seattle is able to press back, getting a number of shots off on the Calgary net, a pretty good press, though the vast majority of the shots are blocked before they can actually get to the net, and any that do make it through the Calgary defense, Markstrom is making every save on Kraken shots that aren't assisted by his teammates. So while the Kraken press doesn't end up leading to a goal, it does eventually lead to a Kraken power play that would end up being the only power play of the game for either team. And it's one for the Kraken that is able to hold the offensive zone for the vast majority of the time, but they spend way too much time passing it around the outside again, and a little bit too slow of passing, not quite as bad as we've seen through large parts of the season, but not quick enough to throw the Calgary penalty kill out of whack and get good scoring opportunities. So eventually it's killed off, and we do get to the end of a scoreless second period, completely controlled by good defense and even better goaltending. Out of nowhere, before the third period can even get started, as they try to drop the puck, Coleman and Donato have a bit of a shoving match, which is broken up, and then as soon as the puck is finally dropped, they drop gloves and go at it. The fight doesn't really end up seeming like it has that much of an effect on the game. The Kraken are able to get some pretty good offensive zone time to start the third period, but it's answered by good defense by the Flames, keeping the Kraken completely to the outside and not allowing a shot on goal. After a few minutes of that, the roles then flip the other way, where the Flames are getting good offensive zone time and the Kraken are playing good defense, right up until the Flames get a 2-on-1 breakaway with Tkachuk across to Lindholm, two guys you really don't want to see on a 2-on-1 break. With Grubauer reading the pass well, though, Lindholm decides not to take the shot off the Tkachuk pass and instead pulls up and passes it back across to the following Gaudreau, who has, at this point, a basically wide open net to shoot at, and he doesn't miss. But somehow it stays out! Oh my... How does it? Grubauer is able to dive back nearly in time to make the save, but is in time to at least get on top of the puck and freeze it. The save ends up being made by Adam Larsson, who gets himself in front of the net and is able to stick a leg out in front of the shot and block it before it can get in, back into Grubauer, who again is able to lay on the puck to keep it from rebounding out for another follow-up shot. Because he's not a goaltender, Larsson won't get credit for a save on this one, but this absolutely should be in the running for save of the game, in a game where there has been some absolutely incredible goaltending, even if, in this case, it comes from a defenseman. Unfortunately, not long after, a shot from the blue line by the Flames rebounds out in front into the slot where Lindholm is able to pick it up skating away from the Kraken net, and this time he doesn't opt for the pass, instead flips a quick 180 and fires off a perfect shot top corner, catching the entire Kraken defense and Grubauer off guard. It's top corner and in to give the Flames the 2-1 lead. And honestly, there's not really much of anything anybody on the Seattle Kraken could have done about this one. It's just a very nice shot from Lindholm. From here, really until the end of the game, the Kraken were able to get some decent pressure back in the Calgary end of the ice, but they just spent way too much time looking for that cute extra pass to get maybe a slightly better shooting opportunity instead of just taking the shots that they were given. And in the end, it leads to not enough shots on goal, and the Kraken aren't able to get another one in, as this game, as we know, ends up finishing 2-1. Grubauer, to his credit, does continue to play absolutely lights out in net for the Kraken at the other end of the ice on a couple of different occasions, preventing the game from getting more out of hand. One 2-on-1 that the Flames have between Mangiapane and Anderson. I'm not sure if Anderson just straight up misses an empty net with Grubauer pretty much beat on a Mangiapane pass, but there's also definitely a chance that as Grubauer dives back putting his glove to the ice, that he may have tipped this one wide, and if he did, this is another absolutely incredible save, but it is kind of hard to tell. In this case, I'm going to give it to Grubauer. He's had a rough season, and I'm just going to assume that he was able to get a glove on this one, and even if he wasn't, he may have been able to make the save if the puck was headed at the net. Eventually, with about 2 minutes left in the game, the Kraken do end up pulling Grubauer for the 6-on-5, where they are able to hold the offensive zone, and although, again, they're doing a little bit too much passing, Gio is taking every shot that he can. Anytime the puck touches his stick, it's pretty much going at the Calgary net. He's really, really trying to get that goal in his return home, but he just can't get that game-tying goal to send it to overtime, and the Flames do hold on to win this game 2-1. And of course, as the game ends, Tkachuk goes after Gio for who knows what reason. There's a little scrum around them, but the refs break it up. There's some words exchanged between Tkachuk and Gio, but I mean, that's just Tkachuk. He's gonna be a rat even against his old captain. So ultimately, in the end, this is a game that is going to look like another one of those where the Kraken played a solid game against a good team, but just found a way to lose it. This time, much more on the offensive end, as they just weren't able to create enough opportunities, and a couple of the ones they were able to create, Markstrom was able to come up with incredible saves on. Honestly, though, I feel like this game isn't so much a case of the Kraken finding a way to lose as them just losing to a team that is hot and, let's be honest, just better at this point in the season especially. I mean, look, to be 100% fair, if it wasn't for Philip Grubauer and his absolutely spectacular goaltending pretty much standing on his head for the Kraken in this one, it easily could have been a blowout in favor of the Flames, as they were definitely getting the better of the Kraken for the majority of this game. Unfortunately, because of the ineptitude by the Kraken on offense, as well as some very good goaltending by Markstrom and defense by the Flames, the Kraken end up wasting one of the 2 or 3 best games that Grubauer has had this season for Seattle. And for the Kraken, especially after that last game that they had against the Jets, where it seemed like they were doing a lot better at just taking shots when they had the opportunity, in this game, they definitely went back to that looking for that one extra pass and trying to be a little bit too cute rather than just taking shots on a goaltender that was stopping pretty much anything coming his way anyway. I will also say that outside of Grubauer's great game, Gio's return to Calgary, and just the Kraken performance in general, every time that they mention the name Tanev on the broadcast, obviously in reference to Chris Tanev, Brandon's brother who plays for the Flames, It definitely stung every single time just knowing what the Kraken are missing with Tanev out for the rest of the season. Obviously, here meaning Brandon Tanev. It was nice to see on the Root Sports broadcast, they put up a picture of the Tanev brothers when they were little kids, and Brandon had a Seattle Mariners hat on, so I guess he had a little bit of a clairvoyant moment back then, knowing that he was going to play in Seattle eventually, not for the Mariners, obviously. Regardless, though, a photo that somehow I'm sure made him even more popular with this fan base, where he's still a fan favorite even after having missed 2 months. So yeah, I think it's pretty safe to say that at this point in the season, all of us Kraken fans are basically the embodiment of that Wolverine meme where he's laying in bed pining over a photo. In this case, a photo of Tanev and what we could have had with more of him this season. Up next, the Kraken will, on Monday, finish out this Canadian road trip with their first trip to Vancouver to face the Canucks, and look for their first ever win as a franchise in the country of Canada. Now 0-3 with the early season loss to the Oilers, then with all the postponements in December and early January, these last 2 games having been the other 2. And that game is also happening on my birthday, so it would be nice for the Kraken to give me a good birthday present with a win against the rival Canucks. And that might also end up being a game that I stream for the first time again here in a couple weeks. Again, I was hoping to get a little bit prior notice before the next stream because I've not been particularly good about that. Either way, until that game does happen, stream or no stream, do feel free to let me know in the comment section what you thought about this Flames game. And until next time, if you have made it to this point, thank you very much for watching. If you did like or enjoy this video, there are buttons for that kind of stuff down below. And as always, be safe out there, be good to each other, and go Kraken.